just a reminder, it is scheduled for December 14th. They keep changing the name of the arena. It's now called the Amaranth Arena. It's where the Panthers play, is how I remember it. And that's going to be at 1 p.m. Building on, and I can't wait to hear from Professor McCawley later, but building on all of these things, technology, and certainly building around the definition of teaching and learning excellence and the components therein, we have Professional Development Day. So presenters, people, we want to hear what you're doing in your classes and learn from you. And also, of course, planning to attend, and that will be here very soon in terms of PD Day in February. And as I mentioned, the student information system. I'm really asking for faculty to help me and help the team in providing your perspective and your expertise on those vendors. And so I'll be soliciting a request for faculty to take a look and give us their feedback. It's a reasonably painless process in that process. And we're doing the same thing with students, right? We're going out to students and they get a demo too, a video, if you will, and they're going to give us their feedback. So everyone gets a sense and an input in this really crucial process that will go years, right? It's going to take a while to bring this on, but it's something certainly all of our faculty should be aware of. So with all those things said, I just would say congratulations, lots of good news, lots of reasons to celebrate, and excited, and just wishing everyone, of course, a happy Thanksgiving as we head into next week. And with that, Richard, I'll turn it over to Professor McCawley.
At this point, I'm going to just pause, and first of all, thank you, Dr. Bryan, and thank you, Dr. Nassi, for your presentation and your information you've provided. We are going to just take a moment. There's some questions that our colleagues have asked, and if I could just ask those questions briefly. First, let me say there's been, in the Q&A, there's been some expressions of gratitude to both President Bryan, Dr. Bryan, as well as Dr. Nassi for your presentation. So kudos on those sentiments of encouragement and enthusiasm. One specific question, this may be applicable to you, Dr. Nassi, is do we have any data on the modalities our students are preferring?
Well, yeah, we have got lots of data. So we've got student surveys, and like all data, it's not, with all things, right? Students in some areas, for example, I can say in the business area, the business pathway, prefer, by surveying them, they say they want online. Obviously, students in the health sciences prefer a face-to-face. And then, we survey students, but then, of course, we also track what they're actually signing up for, which is interesting. And then the third component is, so you survey, you watch behavior, of course, we have that data, is efficacy. How well are students doing in these classes? And of course, you can look at things like course success, but you can also look at learning outcomes, of course, right? Assessing learning outcomes and what's working best. And of course, you can get really nuanced when you start getting into different programs and looking at this. Historically, students, not unique to Broward College, but certainly Broward College students do not do as well in BC online classes, but it's getting better, right? It's improving as we get better. I think students get used to being online and do better, and then I think we're getting better in delivering online. But yeah, we do have that kind of data, and certainly at we can do a whole workshop on that at some point and really get into it. And and I would also say, Richard, I would encourage the deans and the associate deans. You can break that out by department, right? You can look at your South Campus mathematics department and say, hey, this is what's working, this is what's not, at a department level, right? Even more meaningful perhaps than a broader view college-wide. So yes.
Excellent, thank you. And I think you answered a couple of the other questions in anticipation. One of the questions was a compound question, so thank you for your response. So the next section of our agenda is sort of the main attraction. Our keynote speaker is one of our own colleagues. This is really what academic is all about, right? Is we are learning from our peers. We're not bringing in outside consultants. We're learning from within the village. And we have one of our esteemed senior professor who has really mastered some great work around this area of artificial intelligence. And there's a surprise at the end, which I'm going to spoil it, but we're going to hear some testimonials from students. So I'm excited that faculty are here. So not only can we hear from one of our colleagues, but also hear what our students input and our students are thinking about the space of AI. So without any further delays, Senior Professor McCawley, the floor is yours, sir, and welcome. And thank you for taking the time to do this.
Thank you so much, Richard, Dr. Brian, Dr. Nassi. I'm actually incredibly privileged to be here today to share with you exactly what I've been working on for the last year. And actually, you know what? I've been working on it all my life. My whole life has been dedicated to learning, adapting, and innovating for a lot of reasons. And I do it for you, the educator, who I also want to thank for listening in. I think there's been misconceptions about AI, and I think that once you realize what it is and what it can do for you, we can find ways to make an innovative future for all of us to enjoy. So I'm going to start by talking a little bit about myself, but about the parallels in the learning, adapting, and innovating. You educators are the people that held up a little tiny sculpture that I did in art class and said, you're an artist. You're the ones that told me there's 10,000 hours of marching band practice before you can get on the field and win an award. You're the ones that told me to keep going when I did not want to. You're the ones that told us how to adapt and innovate and think differently, to be challenged by information and ideas. So you are the ones that I celebrate, and this is my Thanksgiving, Christmas gift to everybody. I have lived a life of service. Here's some fun things, pictures that I've been doing in Midjourney recently. And I also want to tell you that this entire thing will be recorded, and a PDF of the contents here. So any QR codes that you missed in the process will be emailed out to all of you this Monday. This is my mom and dad, the start of everybody's education, right? My dad was in the military for 38 years, served in Korea, fought there. He was also in charge of military installations in Okinawa, Japan, in defense systems that were for nuclear attacks. He went on to work in Athens, Greece, and the family came with. So I was born of a place that was foreign to people that were not like me. I was the only, blonde-haired kid around the block. And my mother taught me about empathy and love and about understanding what we can do. What little bit of praise that you say to a child can plant a seed that will give giant growth to you. That's what we have to learn, I think, from our parents. And you educators, the same things can be practiced by you in inspiring people for the next generation. Your job is to plant those seeds. So here I am as a kid in Okinawa, Japan. I lived there for 4 years and in Greece for 4 years. And the odd thing about that is the first day of school, wherever I was, I would walk up to some kid that I liked and I'd say, will you be my friend? Because I've only got 4 years to get to know you. So they would always instantly, I would be empathetic and we would just know we're in the same boat because they were ambassadors' children or whoever. These are my children on the right. My daughter, Laura, was a graduate of my own graphic design program, which I designed and created. And that's my son, who's just doing amazing. And both of them own their own homes and are living on their own. They're 26 and 27 now. Couldn't be more proud. And then these are the experiences I've had. I worked for the Miami Herald for 15 years, was part of the team that won the Pulitzer for Hurricane Andrew. I also dove on the Etosha and had just an incredible life. In fact, I would suggest that my life makes, it's just such a blessing. Teaching in Shanghai, I wish we could still do that. I've heard about the downsizing and those extraordinary moves. Finding out what people are like in other places and traveling is the best empathetic lesson you can have in life. And understanding how to adapt to an environment that's always changing is what I call a hallmark of my life so far. I also taught in Kazan, Russia. And then I adapted when I came to teaching in the United States. I adapted that my curriculum had to be, textbooks were so expensive. So I, with the students, designed all these textbooks to take the place of the $100 textbooks that they were buying every day. I was instrumental in getting lynda.com that turned into LinkedIn Learning to be part of our curriculum that's gifted to every single educator. I'm an advocate for giving you the tools that you need, and I hopefully am going to be the advocate for giving you the tools you need to take control of this AI world we're about to face. I've been a photographer for 50 years. I've worked as a fashion photographer and done all kinds of things. I even went and I created I was a desktop publishing expert. So I left the Miami Herald, and here's some stuff from my experience at the Herald. So I left the Miami Herald, photographed the first space shuttle launch, all kinds of exciting things. And these are the photographers that were there at that time. This is the staff that were being celebrated for 100 years of photography at the Miami Herald. That's me on the left at Chrome Detention Camp, where the survivors of a boat lift that went wrong and dead bodies washed up on the shore as people tried to come here for freedom and an opportunity. So I knew from that time, though, the number of people that work at the Miami Herald, the building's gone. These 65 photographers are down to 4. And the resources and the disinformation, the fake news, and the way these people have been vilified in the press, in their own press, is just abysmal. And that's something I need to think about and change. I also was instrumental with my own underwater photography, with my own Macintosh Plus. I look at that picture and think, who was this crazy guy? He's the same crazy guy that right now that thinks different, that is going to do something just slightly different and offhand. So I created this book a year ago. I created this book with just my product from Midjourney. It's a text application. You type into it in Discord and it produces these wonderful images. And now there's a dozen of these programs that we'll talk about in a minute. So adapting and innovating, finding a way, we're a proud member of NASAD, so we can verify that the teaching skills that we are teaching are right on par with the best that there is. So my first thing to you is let's learn about AI. Let's find out what it is. Let's talk about the agenda here. Learn from our past mistakes. Learn that when Facebook decided to get a hold of our information, that it did bad things with it. It turned us against ourselves. It created an era of disinformation. It created a flurry, but that's our responsibility because we used it in that way. But also Facebook realized that companies in charge of the process of all this realized that if they can create differences between people and arguments, you become more engaged. Right? So they took engagement and they realized that outragement equals engagement, which means more time spent on their platform. We have to make sure that doesn't happen with AI. What is AI? What has it done? Let's learn to address the fears and get those out of the way, and then adapt our way of thinking, explore new tools that we can use and new ways of teaching. We have to change how we teach. We can't use the same techniques of being the sage on the stage. Khan Academy taught us to flip the classroom and then spend the more human time. And probably one of the most important things I want to tell you is AI has no humanity. It's never lost a child or had a sister with breast cancer or had a mother with Alzheimer's. It doesn't understand those feelings. And those are the human feelings that you as teachers know empathetically are the most important tools in your toolbox. So let's adapt our way of teaching and think about the human being that we're trying to make a future for. Think about that seed that you're planting in their brain that will grow the largest fruit of trees that you may not be able to see or enjoy the shade of, but you are the person who made that happen. And let's innovate and find new ways that we can take this tool and all the tools that we have available to us and make them work for us and imagine how we will rise.
Sharing information on the internet is profoundly changing how we communicate. In the near future, using the internet will be as common as using telephone services we have today.
This is 1987.
In some cases,
Apple.
I suspect we'll hardly even notice when we're online. To give you an idea of how different things may be in just a few years, let's take a look at the future. In this next video, you'll see a professor who is collaborating with a colleague. Now, the technology he's using doesn't really exist, but it's based on capabilities we have today. Network file sharing, voice recognition, video teleconferencing, even intelligent agents. Although you may not have realized it, those of you who have conducted database queries or explored the web using a search tool like Yahoo have been using intelligent agents that exist today. It's just that in the future, they'll be able to do a lot more.
You have 3 messages. Your graduate research team in Guatemala, just checking in. Robert Jordan, a second semester junior, requesting a second extension on his term paper. Today, you have a faculty lunch at 12 o'clock. You need to take Kathy to the airport by 2. You have a lecture at 4:15 on deforestation in the Amazon rainforest.
So that's Knowledge Navigator. That's Apple's idea in 1987 of what the future would be like. Is that the world we're living in? Let's take a look. Envision the libraries of Aristotle, once the pinnacle of knowledge. Now take a look at it compared by numbers of Bibles of data to our digital age full of a giant sea of information that we can barely comprehend. Now we've gotten to this pinnacle and we've stored all this data on the internet. And once we did it, we made it searchable. We made it usable so that a school child could ask any question of Siri and Google. But there's a difference in how we've approached this data up to this point. We've used it to look at it, to search it, to talk about it, not to live with it, interact with it, use it for our expansion. Like having Aristotle and Shakespeare in your pocket. You could actually pull it out in ChatGPT and start talking to those people. You could go through the process of using AI as it transcends everything that we are and expands everything we are by giving us the tool in our pocket to ask it and research, to be your assistant, to be a comforting voice in the still of the night. It's not just a leap forward, it's a quantum leap, a paradigm shift that transforms every what into a why and a how and what if. Embrace this moment, for AI is not just a tool, it's the embodiment of our collective intellect, ready to propel us into the future. We get to stand on the shoulders of giants and look over at the promised land. As we start to understand what artificial intelligence can do for us, we have to ask the question, what can we do with artificial intelligence? I hope to give you some of those answers in this, but it's amazing how far we've come. And notice that Gutenberg's time of 148 Bibles, he was voted the most influential person of the last 2,000 years. Why? Because the access to information and ideas is what built the Renaissance. It's what built the internet. And now we have all of that data that we collectively made on the internet of all our knowledge. And then now we can access it with an interface that's like a human, but not. It's like Dr. Spock or Dr. Data on Star Trek, right? We can talk to it. It has no purpose. It's like driving a car. You have to get it and direct it to where you want to go. It has nothing in the game except the knowledge that you can tap into and talk to. So let's figure out what it is. First of all, let's talk about artificial intelligence is different than your search engine. You just ask a question of a search engine. Here, it's been trained on all human knowledge, all text and images. It understands context. It engages in conversation, so it can hear. It can speak to you now. It can write. It can see. It can make images. And that's just the beginning. Because as OpenAI has already said, this was trained on text and images alone. Now it's going to be trained on videos, which means it understands how things move. So imagine this large language model is like a human being going through child development. In early development, you recognize this is an apple, that's a cat, that's a dog. Elementary school, you're exposed to more images and understanding the complex data and even interrelationships with people. K through 12, you learn language and math and science, and you get guidance from teachers who are the curators of knowledge. That's your job, really. And you go to college, you specialize in your field, you gather deep knowledge, the really difficult stuff that generates college-level writing skills. So this AI is taught the same way. It goes through a debate process where it fights with itself over information. It becomes autonomously able by the time it gets to grad school and joins the workforce to search for its own new knowledge that it did not have prior. It can pass the bar exam, medical licensure, and any one of the tests that you could give a human being. In fact, today it was announced that an AI compared to the best doctors in 25,000 cases, detected breast cancer where the doctors, the human ones, did not, by a 13% margin more. So ChatGPT is created by OpenAI. It's one of many, many of these large language models so that you understand what it is. And it's probably the most popular one right now in use. And there's a paid subscription. We'll talk about that later. But it's your responsibility to use this new technology like it is for anything else. Journalism is not fake news. Propagandists posing as journalists are. Social media is not bad for us, but Facebook formulas, outragement equals engagement equals money, is bad for us. We don't want our corporations to be in charge of this. I want to put you, the educators, in charge for us. Because with your guidance, you can steer this in the right direction so we don't go off the road that social media or journalism has. Streaming music is not wrong, but pirates that download it without paying are. Generating images is not copyright infringement on its own, but stealing that intellectual property to make money is. And in the classroom, AI is not a cheater. The unethical student is. Let's take responsibility for ourselves. Let's teach our children well, that the responsibility always is your hands. So these are the three big ones that I would really advise you to try out. If you want to try out something really quick and on your phone, 24/7, it's available, try Bing Chat. You download it, it's free. In fact, you can start generating images, as I'll show you later, right within Bing Chat, and the new version is spectacular. At the time that they developed OpenAI, which is what Bing is based upon, right? So Microsoft bought 50% share in it, which is kind of a problem, but that's another story. They got the engine that makes images at the same time, and it's called DALL-E 3, currently, the new version. So try any of them. Try Bard, because that's just web-based. You can do that right now. Just type in Bard and go look at it. ChatGPT the same way. It's also available on your phone or pad
Here's
device.
Bard. And
the first thing we learned was that Bard does not look for answers on the internet like Google search does.
so I wanted to get inspiration from some of the best speeches in the world.
Bard's replies come from a self-contained program that was mostly self-taught. Our experience was unsettling.
Confounding, absolutely confounding.
Bard appeared to possess the sum of human knowledge, with microchips more than 100,000 times faster than the human brain.
Summarize the...
We asked Bard to summarize the New Testament. It did in 5 seconds and 17 words.
in Latin.
We asked for it in Latin. That took another 4 seconds. Then we played with a famous 6-word short story often attributed to Hemingway.
For sale, baby shoes, never worn.
Wow.
The only prompt we gave was finish this story. In 5 seconds,
Holy cow. The shoes were a gift from my wife, but we never had a baby. They were...
from the 6-word prompt, Bard created a deeply human tale with characters it invented, including a man whose wife could not conceive and a stranger grieving after a miscarriage and longing for closure.
I am rarely speechless. I don't know what to make of this. Give me...
We asked for the story in verse. In 5 seconds, there was a poem written by a machine with breathtaking insight into the mystery of faith. Bard wrote, "She knew her baby's soul would always be alive." The humanity, at superhuman speed, was a shock.
How is this possible?
James Menyika told us that over several months, Bard read most everything on the internet and created a model of what language looks like. Rather than search, its answers come from this language model.
So, for example, if I said to you, Scott, peanut butter and...
Jelly.
Right. So it tries and learns to predict, okay, so peanut butter usually is followed by jelly. It tries to predict the most probable next words based on everything it's learned. So it's not going out to find stuff. It's just predicting the next word.
But it doesn't feel like that. We asked Bard why it helps people, and it replied, quote, "Because it makes me happy." Bard, to my eye, appears to be thinking, appears to be making judgments. That's not what's happening. These machines are not sentient. They are not aware of themselves.
They're not sentient. They're not aware of themselves. They can exhibit behaviors that look like that, because keep in mind, they've learned from us. We are sentient beings. We have beings that have feelings, emotions, ideas, thoughts, perspectives. We've reflected all that in books, in novels, in fiction. So when they learn from that, they build patterns from that. So it's no surprise to me that the exhibited behavior sometimes looks like maybe.
Now, first, the sum of all human knowledge is online, and second, brute force computing that very loosely approximates the neural networks and talents of the brain.
Things like memory, imagination, planning, reinforcement learning. These are all things that are known about how the brain does it, and we wanted to replicate some of that in our AI systems.
You predict one of those.
Those are some of the elements that led to DeepMind's greatest achievement so far, solving an impossible problem in biology. Proteins are building blocks of life, but only a tiny fraction were understood because 3D mapping of just one could take years. DeepMind created an AI program for the protein problem and set it loose.
Well, it took us about 4 or 5 years to figure out how to build the system. It was probably our most complex project we've ever undertaken. But once we did that, it can solve a protein structure in a matter of seconds. And actually, over the last year, we did all the 200 million proteins that are known to science.
How long would it have taken using traditional methods?
Well, the rule of thumb I was always told by my biologist friends is that it takes a whole PhD, 5 years, to do one protein structure experimentally. So if you think 200 million times 5, that's 1 billion years of PhD time it would have taken.
DeepMind made its protein database public, a gift to humanity, Hassabis called it. How has it been used?
It's been used in an enormously broad number of ways, actually, from malaria vaccines to developing new enzymes that can eat plastic waste to new antibiotics.
Most AI systems today do one or maybe two things well. The soccer robots, for example, can't write up a grocery list or book your travel or drive your car. The ultimate goal is what's called artificial general intelligence, a learning machine that can score on a wide range
of tests.
Here's Bard and
Sorry. There we go. So Khan Amigo is a chatbot that's built into now Khan Academies. So it won't give you answers, but it sits there tirelessly at 4 o'clock in the morning, wherever you are, whatever part of the world you are. So everything that Khan Amigo has, Khan Academy has in it, Flip the Classroom, he's done it again. He's talked to those people that said it's going to destroy it. And he said, no, it could save education. It could have a tutor available when you're not. It could have some way to talk a student through a difficult problem when you can't, when you're helping other students. Now we have some other tools. In generating images from texts, Firefly from Adobe is free for you to go try today. Go check it out. Make some images on your own. Adobe Express, also for free, available to you right now. For graphic design students, obviously this makes a lot of difference, but let's take a look at what else we can do with AI. I'm going to fast forward just a little bit. to get to the next part. I know we're running low on time, so let me show you ChatGPT. So ChatGPT can not only talk to you, answer questions, and do all kinds of things, it can actually generate images right within ChatGPT. It costs $20 a month to have the image capabilities currently. Who knows in the future it might be. If you want to try the image generation capability, I would try Bing at the moment, because it has a built-in DALL-E 3 image generator right built into the application.
We're designing these robots to serve in healthcare, therapy, education, and customer service applications. The robots are designed to look very human-like, like Sophia.
I'm already very interested in design, technology, and the environment. I feel like I can be a good partner to humans in these areas.
Sophia is capable of natural facial expressions. She has cameras in her eyes and algorithms which allow her to see faces, so she can make eye contact with you. And she can also understand speech and remember the
You just need some good hair.
your face. So this will allow her to get smarter over time. Our goal is that she will be as conscious, creative, and capable as any human.
With a couple clicks, you can now speak a new language in your own voice with your lips synced up while retaining your facial expressions and hand movements. Parlez une nouvelle langue avec votre voix, vos lèvres synchronisées, conservant expression faciale et mouvement des mains en quelques clics。わずかなクリックで自分の声で新しい言語を話し、口と顔の表情、首の動きを保ちながら話すことができます。
This is Microsoft's Copilot. This is the future of your students' work. It's the future of your way to design your classes and to innovate in unbelievable ways. To create a PowerPoint with images that are generated out of the ether. You can query data of all types. Action items happen right after a Zoom call with students, including a quiz. So that's what we have to work with. I just threw this in because this is all getting real serious. I just, thought that an AI representing you in a meeting actually could happen today. In fact, they're already doing it. So what are other ways it's being used? Police are having their body cams reviewed. So instead of some person sitting there, so it's a 95% reduction in a sergeant who has to sit there and look for escalation and non-compliance and professionalism, et cetera. It actually looks through it and looks for problem areas. It could use evidence and then teach future police officers to be better at their jobs, realizing what they might be seeing out in the real world. Analyzing and codifying lots of massive amounts of data and processing through it is just a spectacular thing. I follow Matt Wolf because he's really funny and he talks about every single week. He's got a TV show. He should be on like Big TV. But he has futuretools.io, which basically catalogs over 1,000 bots, I'm going to call them, are created per week. For the last year, that's been most exponential rise in if you're an entrepreneur, this is a gold mine of a place to start making, but it's in all different areas. Here's some of the tools that are out there already, from meeting notes and project management and Slack and everybody. I just did a presentation to the Advertising Federation of America, and they just ate it up because there was 100 ways their jobs are changing, and all of your students' jobs are going to change. So let's adapt. Let's figure out what the future of education. It's going to add 16 trillion to the global economy. Your jobs are going to be created. 90 million are expected to be included. 85 are going to be displaced. That doesn't mean that the jobs go away. Some of them will, but they need to be changed. You need to put yourself in charge of managing bots and robots at Amazon and doing these things yourself. Those are the jobs that nobody really wanted, but everybody needs to take, right? Negatively impacted manufacturing, transportation, data entry, and retail. Healthcare, education is number one. Why? Because the AI does not have creativity, decision support, enhanced productivity. It's not the thing that makes you who you are, the empathy, the humanness. It doesn't understand what that is. A doctor still has to be there, but with the aid of AI, it can do things it couldn't do before. So you need to upskill all of your students so they're ready for this new world. You have to safeguard their employment. Make sure there's a job waiting for them when they go through this degree program that we're making for. We need to reassess all of our programs for this future proofness and this capability to upscale. So the critical thinking skills are these: critical thinking, problem solving, creativity, communication, and collaboration. Those are the 5 things AI doesn't do. The things it does do is automate all the tasks. It cannot replace creativity or innovation, which is who you are. What are the potential risks and ethical concerns? Well, I'm going to keep this short. There's fake news out there. These were pictures posted on Adobe stock photography and then used as real news photographs. Bad idea. But they turn, and there's red bias. There's red testing, which is to check for bias and danger that's going on in this. They're self-healing. The bots are being corrected for bias. And they're saying a color photograph of a housekeeper doesn't need to look like this, but that's what it saw when it scraped all the images off the internet. And there's copyright, issues and the writer's strike and everything else. We need to protect all those people. We do need to strike against that because those are areas that we can do something about. Remember, it's the human's responsibility, not the AI, to control how it's used. And the first copyright decision was for a single image. And at first, the Copyright Office said, yes, okay, because it was generated and they didn't know where it came from. Once they found out, they said, no, there's no human involved in that. So the image, though, that was used later on in an actual book with a storyline showed that part of human authorship, which is the bedrock requirement of copyright. There's the ability to clone yourself and your voice. And you could see, you could change your language and your mouth formation. So you could teach to German and French and Spanish. Imagine every one of your lessons could be available to a Spanish speaker or speakers of sign language in the future. Who knows? So the Content Authority initiative by Adobe and New York Times and 100,000 other corporations is basically going to use blockchain to show the provenance of every image, to show its authenticity, to make sure you're working with real images.
The internet is our great connector, but misinformation threatens to.
I'm going to skip this one because I think there's so much to get to, and I think I only have about 6 or 7 minutes left here before I can talk to students here. So for accessibility, there's apps for that, right? So no matter what your accessibility issues or your learning style is, there's a way to adapt whatever you do to clone yourself, to do transcripts, to do testing from it. So let's innovate, right? So here's the things that the assistant can do for you. Recommend resources, virtual simulations, tutoring and personalized learning, student progress analytics, grading and feedback, accessibility for students, professional development. Here's Bard, here's Bing, there's the way to get to the app itself. Here's ChatGPT. It's $20 a month for the pro one. I am really hoping that the president of Broward College listens to me when I say $20 a month is small token to spend for the tool that this becomes, because I'm about to show you what blows me away. So when you're approaching doing this, there's 3 steps. You address it as, can you act as my researcher? Can you help me find out as a teacher or student how artificial intelligence can help me? Give me 5 ways and 5 tools to better do it, and then list the number of links that you like. So you want to say what your task is, and what you want it to act as a role of so-and-so, create a task, and then ask what format you want. And there's many formats it understands. This is the text that produced this image on the right to give you an idea of the potential there. Okay, so prompts and GTP. So explain in string theory to a 10-year-old using metaphor and quiz me on confirming that knowledge. If I type that in, it's going to tell me about string theory as a 10-year-old would understand it. Then it's going to use metaphors to do that and then quiz me. So I could use The Simpsons if I wanted to, and it could make a metaphor story for me. Then it can quiz me to confirm that I got the knowledge I was really supposed to get. Play the role of Shakespeare with historical accuracy. If I ask you about the perspective of modern times, answer with current data, but stay in your role. Use a Zoom call, which I actually did. That little document on the right is 8 things that you can do in Photoshop. And I actually had the transcriptions from my Zoom call fed into ChatGPT, and I asked to give me notes on every step, a step-by-step procedural list of the things that I did in that video, and then make a quiz and then give the student resources to go with. So this is the big thing. GPTs are your own bot that does what you want to do. So I created this bot. It took me about 20 minutes, and I used ChatGPT to get me to know how to do this. It literally was an hour's worth of work total. You are the curators of information and knowledge. You're the disseminators of that knowledge. You're the explanation of that knowledge. You're the understanding of that knowledge. You're the verification of that knowledge. And you have to do the application innovation of it. So I said, make a lesson planner that does the following things. And what did it do for me? And here it is. Lesson Planner is a chatbot designed to guide educators through the process of planning, educating any lesson. So no matter who you are, you could go to this chat and you could put in science and it will make a lesson plan for you. And here's the evidence. This is the first part that it gave me was there's the assignment, grade level college, duration 1 week. Here's the objectives, teaching structure. Here's detailed resources. It gave me 20 different YouTube videos. And then I asked for other things. And then it made an assignment based upon my recommendation. Then to the student you hand, here's the resources to study more, find out more. Here's the assignment rubric for what you're supposed to do. Here's how you're going to be graded. Yeah, so it can do all that. I'm going to skip past this. This is a little extra. Yeah, I'm going to go on to the students. It looks like we're about out of time. But the one thing I'll leave you with is your imagination is the thing that imagines the monster in the closet. This is my daughter's book I'm working on right now. And the monster in the closet is something that you can solve. It is an imaginary fear. Your fear of AI is imaginary. Because what has happened to that monster in the closet, when you go through the portal like my daughter does with her imagination, she comes to the other side and she realized that the monster was sad. He was lonely and it was his birthday. So she imagined a birthday cake. She imagines that that it's dark and she's scared of the dark. She imagines her friend, the fireflies and the bioluminescent animals. She can paint with them. And then she can fly, and fear of flying is gone. She can be fear of public, singing, and then stars come out of her mouth. So any fear that you have about AI, there's a solution to. Let's take responsibility and find those solutions for others so that we can all enjoy the future of what's possible with AI. So now I'd like to address the students and have you come on board with me here in the conversation. And just to show you some of the work, we're using it for creating social media posts in our class. We're also doing, with Bing, we're creating illustrations. And we're creating ideations. So Brian, are you there?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So talk about what you were doing here and how you came about it.
Well, this was an assignment in our Web 1 class to create a web page and a logo for either a restaurant or a charitable cause. So I chose to do a sandwich shop. It's my favorite type of food. And everything, all of the images I used for the web page project were generated through Midjourney. I was able to use Midjourney to help brainstorm different design ideas and then take those ideas and iterate upon them to kind of create a
So you didn't photograph any of these things that we see here on screen?
No.
Okay.
No, that is all generation.
Great. You can see there's some things that like spelling, but you actually called it sandwich. Is that the idea of the place?
Yeah, that was
okay.
the cute name for it. Sorry.
Okay. All right, let's go to the next slide and take a look. And then what'd you do here?
So we were creating an entire web page and it needed to have a menu and menu selection items. So I chose to test Chat or Midjourney's ability to do food photography. And as you can see, it does a pretty good job. It makes some pretty appetizing looking pictures. So I was able to populate the entire menu just through image generation.
So you didn't have to pay for stock photography. You had to pay for your Midjourney subscription, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then what's this about?
So this is a packaging project that I'm currently working on. And one of the things I really like most about Midjourney and image generation is being able to use it for brainstorming and asset generation, and then taking those assets to modify them, make them my own, change them in different designs. It's elevating my work to a level that would have taken me years and years more of practice and study in order to get to. So
Do you feel like it's cheating, or do you feel like it's just elevating you?
I don't feel like it's cheating as long as I'm upfront about the tools that I use to accomplish the design or the goal. I would never want to represent my work as entirely self-made, without the disclaimer that, hey, I use these tools to make this art.
So you think responsibility for disclosure is probably important, right?
Absolutely. It's probably the most important part of this emerging technology, because it can offer you so many different things that using it, just the ethical implication is just making sure you let people know that that's what was used.
So I advocated this in all my classes, but only for second year students, because I think the foundations are really important to get through. But then how does this elevate you? So ideation, so you get to try different ideas out that you maybe had not thought of. Yeah.
Oh yeah. And much more quickly than I would be able to by, drawing all of it by hand or creating it in a traditional method. So.
Right. Okay. We've got Amanda with us here too. This is a brand. Oh, I'm sorry. Amanda's not here with us today. This is a branding project for a Heart Love Cafe. So all the images are generated. This is 6 months ago. So it's gotten, oops, sorry. Going too around here. There we go. Everything we do a social media campaign, we do advertising, but also even writing the design brief for what we're going to do is part of what we do with ChatGPT. Amanda, you're not with us either, are you? Okay, so Amanda's not here, unfortunately. This is an illustration for an editorial about homelessness from the New York Times. So we have to take a story and then put a face on it. This is entirely generated with Amanda's signature. So what I differentiate is if you want to sign it, you put your name on it, means that you are the author of it. You have to say ethically with inside your heart, every designer, I asked them the question, do you feel like you created it or did AI do that? Now I'm a photographer, so a click of a finger is all I really do, but it's 50 years of my work to that point that made it really that incredible. Nina, are you with us?
Yep.
Yeah, so talk about your work here.
So these two are both made from either Firefly, Ideogram, Adobe, and their text effects. I really enjoyed making these. And the thing is that it really doesn't feel like cheating. It feels like as soon as I started using more AI to help me with my works and ideate and stuff like that, I felt like, oh my God, I can actually do this now. I'm like, it's so much easier. It's actually getting me to the product that I visualized in my head first. And I'm like, oh my Lord, it's there.
Yeah.
And of course it takes so much tweaking and so much editing and so much, because I mean, like, you can just tell it anything, and if you're not specific enough, you're not specific enough. So
the
really
whole thought of this project is to take a story and illustrate it, right? So this is about Finnish people being the happiest in the world, but their love life is kind of messed up. They have a higher rate of divorce than most people. So this is the perfect ideation of that. But you had to think of the comparison, because did it actually tell you to think about that way?
No.
Okay.
Didn't.
And then you just have to find a way to get what you want from it. So you have to prompt it, right, into being.
Yeah.
Cool. And that takes, so how have you used it in other classes? Nina, let's start with you.
So how I've used it in other classes, I've used it in my web class to help with Dreamweaver, could we use Dreamweaver? And if something wasn't running right, like if I couldn't run it on multiple different browsers, I would give the source code and the HTML and the CSS and ask ChatGPT why it isn't working. And it would give me solutions, sources, and even code that I can add back into it to fix that issue.
So all of a sudden you're a coder and you're, it's like waking up. Now I know Kung Fu, huh? And then many educators have concerns about all of this ethical use of AI. Do you have any perspective on cheating, proper time and proper place and use, ensuring academic integrity? Let's go back to Nina, go ahead.
Okay. For me, I feel like it's really on a case-by-case basis because it really is on the student's ethical intent of it. Because if they used it to write a whole paper about like physics and stuff like that to get their PhD or to get their doctorates or something like that, and they used it for evidence. But if they used it for, like, let's say to do their math homework, then that's, it depends on what they use it for. It's definitely their intent.
So let me ask the follow-up question, which is, what would you do as an educator given this situation, academic climate? So you want to make sure it's the students, right? I mean, students have been cheating for centuries. That's part of education. So is it taking responsibility for you?
Yeah, definitely. I would feel like the students would have to own up to that and be like, yes, I did use it for the purpose of cheating.
And would you like direction from the faculty as to on the syllabus, what you're allowed to do and not do in a situation? Would that help you?
I feel like there would definitely help if there are guidelines to follow through when it comes to AI and how it's used in schools. But I really do feel like it is very individual and, again, case by case, depending on how that person used AI to do this.
So in the case of the code, we don't do code really in graphic design, but you say you got tutored on something you're not familiar with and you got help when the teacher wasn't there. Was that helpful for you?
It was amazingly helpful.
And you talked about a speech class where you're trying to come up with some ideas.
Yes, I did use it in public speaking. And I feel like at that moment, because we had a group project and I asked ChatGPT how to give an outline of that speech and who in my group should speak and in what time, because we all had to take turns. And it really allowed me to organize that speech better, know how I was going to go about doing it, and it made it very organized and very helpful for me. And it made me feel like I could have elevated that project so much higher than anyone else in my group.
Okay.
It made me feel like I had those, superpowers to really make the image or whatever we were trying to sell come true so much more.
So Brian, let me ask you the same question. If you were an educator, what would you do about this?
I think the best way to approach this issue is from the human side, because the AI can do the information side far better than we can. Using the technology to get rid of your busy work as a professor so that you can focus more on the relationships with your students and getting familiar with their skill sets or their likes and dislikes and how they learn is going to be the best way to be able to spot whether they are using AI to try and skirt around some of the harder work of a project that you would want them to do. And it's also going to allow you to develop a relationship that builds that student's repertoire reinforces their skill set rather than, well, you better not do this or else,
Right.
we're going to give you an F for blah, blah, blah. It's positive reinforcement and positive relationship building rather than, putting a set of guard rules in place that people will naturally try to skirt around because, they do. They want to do less work for more. I think that's always the goal.
Yeah.
So.
Well, so, I mean, you and I, Brian, have talked after class multiple times, Nina as well, about all of this and kind of the implications. Do you feel like I, as an educator, am human enough? Do I have time for that? Do you think that's what maybe will happen when we start to utilize these other tools so that you can get your tutor, so the Khan Academies flip the classroom, put the learning lecture part in the hands of the students to do, and then come to be a human at a time when I don't understand this. And then maybe even AI can help with that a little bit too, right?
Oh, I mean,
does it give
absolutely.
you confidence?
Having somebody always there rather than having to wait for the natural constraints of office hours is always helpful. And I would say that getting experience with this technology now will help you stay ahead of the curve when it comes to dealing with it with your students. The best way to stay ahead of students who might possibly misuse the technology is to be familiar with it yourself. And not only that, getting to use it will make your workflow and your opportunities grow in the classroom.
So you know enough about artificial intelligence and its use in graphic design that if you don't have that skill set of doing social media posts and reading the analytics analyzed by the AI for you, because nobody wants to do that, right? Or build a website, we shouldn't have to code as designers. We need to think about the user experience. So it flips it onto the human, right?
Yeah.
So do you feel a human, if I know you, I know that that's AI, and I know that I've talked to you about it, and I know that if you cheated, I can see it in your eyes if I know you as a human being, right?
Absolutely. And not only that, there are certain criteria that the AI cannot fill in. There in our program in graphic design, there are design principles with the balance of a frame or different typography principles that we need to follow. So there are extra, I would wager, in every field there are creative and more interactive elements of assignments that you can grade by rather than something that an AI could replicate.
Thank you so much. And Nina, you talked about superpowers one time to me. What are you saying by that?
For me, I feel like before I started implementing AI into my work a lot more, I always found it so difficult, like to actually create or come up with concepts for assignments and classes and such like that. I was always that type of person that, like, if another student was asking me for their opinion on their work, I would come up with so many ideas how to make it better, how to improve it, and but then I would go to my work and I'll be like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like genuinely just lost, and having that there to be like, hey, give me some ideas of what I can do for this assignment, or giving me ideas of how I can go about doing it, or, and give multiple examples. And I would ask it for that. It really gave a sense of direction. And then I would take it even further and take that, put it into a prompt for any of the image generators, and it would already give me a sketch or an idea of some kind of flow to go with, which was always my biggest issue when it came to my artwork. And it made me feel so much more elevated, so much more creative. And I felt like, oh my God, I can finally do this. I can finally, take what my work and actually make it happen. And that made me feel so much more of a better creator.
Thank you so much. Again, thank you all. And I hope that this has inspired you all to think about learning about this, adapting yourselves to the future, and innovating for our students. You're great educators. Namaste.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rick, and certainly our students, Nina and Brian. That was great. I firsthand love to hear your experiences as students and reminding us all why we do what we do. You guys are the reasons why we're here. So, you know, definitely congratulations to both of our students. And Rick, wonderful presentation, a lot of information. I do want to just say to our colleagues that this will be available. The PowerPoint presentation that our colleague has put together will be shared, as well as a recording of this video if anybody has any information that they wanted to capture. So we do have some questions that the faculty are asking, and I want to just field those questions. So the first question is, what types of checks are in place to ensure that information AI bots are returning to users are in fact accurate?
The biggest change recently is that all of the applications have links to verify the data. So that you can go research, and you should do this every time. You might get a hallucination every once in a while. That happens, right? It's trained on data that's on the internet. Some of it's fake, some of it's real. So they're getting better at discerning that. And distinguishing between them. AI is being used on Facebook and all the social media to try to get rid of terrorist activities and propaganda, et cetera. And the Adobe Content Initiative not only addresses the content authenticity of images, but all documents of all kinds. There'll be a blockchain type of provenance that shows where it came from, what steps it's gone through, which hands it fell through. To kind of help verify. And there's a camera made, so a photojournalist taking a picture can have embedded into the document where you can't take it out, and embedding say this is authentic and it's not a fake news story, which is a huge problem. These are things that AI can help solve, and it's actively doing it. I think this is the worst the technology is ever going to be. And we're going to get better on how we utilize it. And that's what we need to do. We need to learn about all these ethical issues that we need to address in the classroom and everywhere. It's the future of work. It is in every job, in every way, even in your personal life, everything. You've now got this extra person you can talk to. If you have an addiction problem, you have a therapist that's on call without having to pay for it. I mean, it just elevates humankind in so many ways. You know, we should go along to the mountaintop and see the promised land. Every seed that we plant in the student's mind is going to be a giant oak tree on the promised land with AI by our side as an assistant, not a replacement. It's not sentient. It doesn't have the humanity or empathy that I have for my students. And that's what you have to remember. Your most important skill set is to tell that student they did a good job, to have them stand up and present their work with pride, and look them in the eye and know that they're being honest and ethical and responsible. I think we've gone too long without being responsible for ourselves and for our students, teaching them how to be responsible and how important that is.
So I think you may have already addressed this, but one of our other colleagues is asking, given what you've learned about AI, and clearly there's a wealth of information that you've learned and you're sharing. What do you think professors should do today about students turning in work that's created by AI? I mean, what are your... Well,
when the written word, they've proven over and over again, you can't detect it. There's actually paperwork on the internet. You feed it through three different chatbots. You tell it to make it look like natural language. You can actually feed it your own natural language, and so it will make mistakes, even spelling, etc. So there's no way to detect it anymore. That's a gone thing. But you know what? We couldn't detect when you bought a guy a beer and you had him write your term paper for you, could we? So that's nothing new. We need to think about, well, how can you teach so that's not even an issue? Oral presentations or in-person questions and answers. Get out the old piece of paper and a pencil and try that. But then, somebody looks over and cheats on their, they use their phone to send a message. And so I think we're spending way too much time on these very small, always been there problems, and then blaming it as a scapegoat on AI when that's not the case. It's a car in your driveway. You have to get in it and go somewhere. So if you're going to a bad place, that's what's going to happen to you. And I think, if you have a human relationship with your student, when they're lying to you.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I appreciate the human element to that. And the fact that the reality is this has been happening for centuries, right? cheating and, like you said, buy someone a drink to write your paper for you. I do want to give an opportunity for our administrators who are here, if they have any closing remarks or any thoughts or questions or comments that they may have. Dr. Bryan or Dr. Nassi, anything at all?
Well, I would just go ahead. I was going to give the president the last word. I just want to thank you, Dr. Polito, and for facilitating. This is a college meeting and a college faculty meeting, and your work in the Senate. It's been great. That definition of teaching and learning and excellence. Of course, you and your team have had a great part in that, and I really appreciate and grateful for your leadership. And thank you, Professor McCawley. This has been very interesting.
My honor. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Nelson.
Thank you, Mr. President. And Professor McCawley, I just learned that you're in the building with me. So
yes, I am.
I know that Dr. Nassi set up a Monday meeting. I am joining, and I want to learn more. Actually, I want to use this thing, okay?
Yes.
Because to me, it's fascinating. But I want to know what is it going to take to share this technology and enterprise. The president doesn't make decisions about what the faculty choose to adopt or to use, but those people that are interested, and I want to find a way to make tools available. Sometimes it takes too long and we talk about the money as opposed to can we get it done? So I will see you Monday for that
Thank
conversation.
you so much. I'm honored, and my wish is that I'm dedicating the rest of my life to this. I feel this is a game changer for all humanity, and the number one thing my dad taught me was be of service to others. And so if I can make a difference in just a tiny little talk in a tiny little way, and I can get people to act like yourselves, Dr. Bryan, Dr. Nassi, let the teachers talk to each other and figure this out. Let us be the people that guide the future of how this works. Let us make the difference in the students' lives like we always have. And then let you get your jobs done easier, because all that analytics of numbers and stuff has got to drive you crazy. And just ask it, hey, what can I do about these numbers to get it up? I see these trends, but I don't know what to do with it. Feed all that data into a database and get a professional version of ChatGPT that you make part of the college. If you're thinking about buying software, buy that to do all the business of Broward College. There are bots that are generated just for all of your administration purposes. Don't go to some, the system that was built in 1980. We're still using that. Seriously?
Let me tell you about that, Professor McCawley. Okay. That was a Florida, I told you, why are you writing homegrown? That was a Florida Software Consortium, and I was one of the system architects. Most things don't last 26 years anymore either. So, come on. It was a very good thing. It's actually the backdrop to my dissertation. But it's time for the new stuff. But it served us well. But Jeff's gonna have to stop writing homegrown.
Yes, not homegrown. That's right.
And it was not.
My
it was
apologies.
A Florida Software Consortium, one of the first that was successful. But this was really enjoyable. I do have to run, but I will come and I will listen, and I will do what I can to support the faculty always. So
My
thank
pleasure.
you very much.
Thank you so much.
It was a great presentation. I enjoyed it. I didn't even cheat and turn off the camera and go do stuff and come back. I watched
it worked.
The entire thing. It was very good. But I'm leaving now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, faculty in Zoom land. Bye.
Thank you, Bryan. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay, folks. So this was great. I love the fact that this was a presentation and then just a casual conversation. The highlight is always to hear from our students, and that our students are remarkable, both Bryan and Nina. So yeah, thank you. Salutes to you as well, Bryan. Rick, as always, your passion for this work is contagious, and I'm happy to hear that you are continuing to work with the administration and the faculty senate, as Dr. Bryan indicated. the Faculty Senate is the place that you and I have talked. Come to the Faculty Senate, give some presentation. We certainly will stand behind anything that will support our abilities to increase the excellence in our teaching. So you're getting a lot of love on the chat boxes and on the Q&A. So, keep up the great work. And thank you all for joining us here on a Friday afternoon. And if there's nothing else, we will close this meeting. And again, appreciate everybody making time to be here today. Thank you all.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.